maybe 12 hours or whatever. Uh, there was a reporter that wrote it up, and I saw that, but the New York Times didn't publish it, and it really annoyed me. But I also thought, 60, we need to honor this
Yeah.
older person, which probably
60.
many of you still think, but at 76, 60 seems very, very young to
Well, we
me.
were kids,
Well,
but
I
he
was
was
30.
60.
60 seemed
You were 30,
old.
right, right.
And Craig, just to pull you in, I know that you saw Jackson read a number of times. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about just the experience of Jackson reading, performing. I don't know how we want to describe poetry readings of Jackson.
Well, maybe, yeah, let me first just say the one time that I met John Cage, we talked about Jackson's poetry. Is what I wanted to most ask John about. Um, maybe I could say, since we're going to hear Jackson read, maybe I'll echo something Charles said, and I mainly remember Jackson as an audience member. That his support um, of young writers, of writers doing different things, of writers doing experimental things, was really extraordinary. What I most remember is this positive, um, generous link to an experimental tradition, an avant-garde tradition, a previous generation. And when I showed up at readings, when I lived on the East Coast, I could count on Jackson being there, and paying attention, and that was really extraordinary um, for that generation. Let's say.
I'll say too, actually, I mostly saw Jackson in the audience at the Poetry Project, and we'll invoke Ulla Dido later, great Gertrude Stein scholar, but I was first introduced by Ulla and in the audience
Yeah.
at the Poetry Project. I don't remember who was reading the first time, but yeah, he was frequently present and just being present and supportive. And we'll talk about that too. And just because I think I don't know, and maybe we'd love to hear it. How did you meet Jackson?
Mhm.
I met him at a Christmas party at Charlie Morrow through and 79 or so, I think. And curiously enough, nobody ever believes this, but before that party, the night before, I had a dream that had the word Jackson Maclow in it. And I had never met him. I didn't know who he was. And when I met him at Charlie's, I said, I had a dream about you. And he said, bullshit. He said, that was his reaction. But it's really true. It's kind of prophetic dream.
See,
Um,
I don't believe that either. So what can
well, we did a lot of performing together, as you must know, for many years, and yet we insisted on being independent artists, so we didn't want to be completely molded together, but we did work for years, decades, performing mostly his works, sometimes mine, but rarely.
And I think, well, we'll talk, let's hold this thought. I actually want to talk a bit more about performance and poetry, and particularly in terms of Maclo. But now might be a good time to watch a little video of Jackson. And if we could bring that up.
Now read a series of poems called Phone, which consist of a spontaneous poem and 10 variations on it. It's a recent, written during the summer. Whenever I answer the phone, it's never you. Even if it was you, it'd never be you saying, hello, it's me. I love you so much. I can hardly wait to see you. Can I come over right now? Yes, 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 yes. So I hate the sound of the phone, and worse, to answer it. Hello, hello. No, I'm not me. I'm not here. I'll never be. Was you, it would never be you saying, hello, it's I love you so much. I can hardly wait to see you. Now, yes, yeah. I hate the sound. Oh, hello, hello. No, I'm not me. Can hardly wait to see you. Yes, 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 yes. Sound of the phone and worse to and worse. Hello, hell. Here, never I answer. If it was yo, it's me I love.
Mm.
Wait to see you. Can I come? Right now, yes, 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 yes. So hello, hello. No, swear. He phone. If it was you, hello. It's me. I love you. Come over right now. Yes, yes, yes. So to answer, hello, hello. No, and worse to me, I'm not. Whenever I answer the phone, it was you. It's you. Well, yes, 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 yes. So I hate it. Hello, hello. I'm not here. I answer the phone. So never. I can hardle it to see you. Can I come over right now? Yes, yeah. Can I come right now? Yes, yeah. Yes, so I hate hello, hello. No, I'm not. And worse to hear, I'll hone its if it was hello, I come over were the phone, it's never yo. If it was you, ever be you saying it's me. I love yo so much. Hardly wait. I come over, right? I hate the sound of the phone. I can hardly wait to see. Yeah, wait to see. Yeah.
Just an excerpt of a bit of a performance, and maybe I'll just invite any of you to just say a word about what we just saw.
If I might just say that comes from Penn Sound
Oh,
in
I
part.
meant to
We
say that.
actually
Yes, absolutely.
preserve that. So you can go to Penn Sound, just PENNSOUND, you'll find it, and go to the McClough page because we have an enormous number of recordings there, as well as at Getty, there are additional recordings. But Penn Sound has a great collection of conversations and so on. And that was exactly the time that I met Jackson, maybe a couple of years before that. And I wanted to mention the company I met Jackson in, which was to some degree in some of those videos, which would have been Hannah Weiner and David Anton and Jerome Rothenberg. So those people were central in my whole life with Jackson, and they all loved Jackson. And it was a very important when I was in my mid-20s to meet those people together.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. And maybe just a word again, any of you, just about how poetry is not something only on the page. Maybe I'll just throw that out.
Well, that shocks me. I thought it was only on the page, so I'm going to have to turn to Anne and Craig.
It's on the wall behind you. Yeah, the part of what I hear is part of what I learned so much and appreciate so much about Jackson's writing, which is the recognition that words are not the fundamental unit of language. They're phonemes and graphemes and individual letters, individual noises, even before their phonemes, maybe.
And then I'm curious because you performed a lot together. What sort of rehearsals did you do, or how much was spontaneous then knowing how this kind of work might be done?
I don't know. Who are you asking?
Oh, I'm
You,
asking you,
yeah.
Anne. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was spacing out.
That's okay.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes, I'm just curious because you performed a lot with Jackson. Um, how much did you rehearse, or how much was spontaneous, having known how a
All
lot
of
of this kind of work might
it was
work?
all rehearsed
Yeah.
very, very carefully. Yeah, it was, a guided improvisation, as he called it. The
And I
score.
noticed
Yeah.
he's holding a stopwatch in that particular little video, although he doesn't seem to be necessarily timing that moment, but maybe he was. I don't know.
He liked to time things, yes. Yes.
And I think that probably a lot of that comes from Cage, that timed lectures.
In
Uh-huh.
performing with him, especially in the mid 70s, earlier on, I was very struck with if you think of his work as free form and improvised. In rehearsals, he was very strict that you had to follow the score exactly. You weren't supposed to go off on your own. And he always emphasized something which he always disliked when I allegorized his aleatoric techniques as a democratic model, but I like to do that. But his most important thing he said is listen to what the other people are doing. Listen.
That's
Actually, the phrase was listen and relate.
Yeah, but even better. But
I put it on his tombstone.
yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah.
Listen and relate.
Let it relate. Yeah, it was it was the way he was, and
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
very inspiring. But also, in back of me is one of his. You could perform this homage in different ways, but it gives you the sense of this what I would call the 4D sound he was creating. It's a wonderful event at the kitchen where he had the speakers in four different speakers with his voice. So you moved around the space, you would hear different things so that it wasn't like on a page, flat Euclidean space. As you got closer to one thing or further from another, you would hear different kinds of combinations. So that the idea of an ambient, not really ambient, but in the Tom Lin sense of ambient, a space that you'd move through that didn't actually foreground one particular line of melody or one thematic, and you would hear different things as you move through it, very much was understanding of what reading is, that you read as you project in and where you're coming from and where you're going through and as you move around. So he really combined a very rigorous conception of performance art with poetry in a way that was very powerful and very radical for the time. Few precedents come to mind for what he was doing, certainly in the mid 70s and would go back to the 50s. There was nobody that I knew who was able to articulate these values in the way that McClure did and still does.
Yeah. What's kind of amazing for me about that, I've sometimes said that reading is a group activity accomplished one person at a time. But back to the sort of Cajun sense in that every person is having an indeterminate experience, that if I'm near that speaker, I'm hearing something different than you who might be near that speaker. And so that every listener reader in that sense is really having a unique experience because the poem becomes something not only oral but spatial, which is really
Yes, the poem is between the reader and the audience somewhere.
it's really something.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good time to bring in a poem. Anne, I think we'll start with you. I've asked you to read one of the light poems. I have this handy, so I'll hold it up. This beautiful volume, edited by Anne Tardos, also Michael O'Driscoll. But you're going to read, I think, the 19th light poem for Iris, 7 February 1963. And we can bring that up on the screen so that everyone can see
Oh,
while you're
wow.
reading it. And maybe before you, well, we can see the instruction there. I don't know if there's something else you want to say about it before you read it or after.
Breath pauses at line endings. That's the only instruction.
There we go.
Yeah. And when you first invited me to read from Jackson, I thought, I don't read Jackson, I just perform his work.
Right.
But this is both. 19th light poem for Iris, 7 February 1963. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Light pillow, light, light, light. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Heels, heels, suede ceiling heels. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Underwear envelope, red underwear, water sound underwater. Underwear, underwear, underwear. Tape recorder. Light, 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 light. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Light, 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 light. Light, 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 light. Light, 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 light. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Light, pillow, light, light, light. Pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Heels, heels, suede ceiling, heels. Pillow lights, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Underwear envelope, red underwear. Water sound, underwear, tape recorder. Heels, ceiling, suede, ceiling, heels. Heels, ceiling, suede, ceiling, heels. Suede, 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 suede. Ceiling, red iris. Ceiling, 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 ceiling. Heels, heels, suede, ceiling, heels. Pillow lights, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Light, pillow, light, light, light. Pillow lights, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Heels, heels, suede, ceiling, heels. Pillow lights, pillow heels, pillow underwear. Underwear, envelope, red underwear. Water sound, underwear, underwear. Underwear, tape, recorder. Underwater, red underwear. Underwear. Sorry. Underwear, red underwear. Water sound, underwear, tape, recorder. Envelope, underwear, oscillation. Envelope, redneck, red underwear, red underwear. Water sound. Underwear, tape, recorder, water sound, tape, recorder, water sound, green, tape, recorder, water sound, tape, recorder, underwear, red underwear, water sound, underwear, tape, recorder, underwear, red underwear, water sound, underwear, tape, recorder, underwear, red, underwear, water sound, underwear, tape, recorder, tape, recorder, envelope, underwear, tape, recorder, tape. Or the lights given off by, no, that's not it. Sorry. I skipped a page. Recorder, tape, recorder, underwear, water sound, tape, recorder, light, dog, light, 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 pillow, light, pillow, heels, pillow, underwear, light, pillow, light, 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 pillow, light, pillow, heels, pillow, underwear. Heels, suede, ceiling, heels, pillow lights, pillow heels, pillow underwear, envelope, red underwear, water sound, underwear, tape, recorder, light, dog, light, pillow light, pillow heels, pillow underwear, lights, pillow, light, dog, light, 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 light. So I see this as a musical composition more than a poem. I mean, as poem as a musical piece, musical work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that the line between poem and music is pretty fuzzy here.
Right.
And certainly the same with most of Cage's poetry, which is not normatively syntactic, but one might call sound poetry in some ways. And
Yeah.
do you know, I don't know if you know about the specific poem or even the light poems in general, did these words, were they just intuitively come upon, or are they derived perhaps from something? Do you know? The dog suddenly appears near the end.
I mean, he's obviously talking about the room he was in, and he's seeing a pillow and a red underwear and a dog and ceiling and suede. That is just a play on whatever he saw.
Oh, so really it's a landscape, interior.
Yes, it is a landscape.
Except
Wonderful.
that he has specific, and would speak to this, the specific light names through the different poems that form
Oh
the.
yeah, of course, yeah.
I mean, we
And
know that, but let's share that with the people for whom this
well,
may
the
be new.
light poems were written over many decades, and they're all dedicated or about someone. And in this case, it's for Iris. I don't know. This is a kind of the one I read is fairly unusual because most of the poems are syntactic and very little play there. It's just a text. But there is a homage to the dedicatee, except like maybe with Armand Schwerner, and they had a falling out, and he wrote a poem for Armand Schwerner about uh, that conflict, which then was resolved. They were close friends. But that's a very good poem too. But in that sense, this is very the light poems are very untypical of
But he does have the list of type of lights that move through.
right. So he used chart, light chart, and I think it's reproduced here as a departure, acetylene light, this light, that light, and I don't know if they were connected, how closely they were connected with the dedicatee or the poem itself. It was just a departure poem, departure. Uh, some people who read it more carefully than me uh, notice there's a light poem for Anne Tardos, and he begins with a light that begin acetylene light, and then if you study the thing, he spells out my name, but I wasn't able to do that. But anybody, actually, Michael O'Driscoll did. He analyzed the poem and uh, admirable, you know. Michael O'Driscoll is a professor of English in Canada, and he's like a real uh, he was very immersed, is very immersed in Jackson's work, and he co-edited some of the posthumous works with me, and he knows so much about Jackson's work that analytically, and it's just amazing to see somebody being so engaged with someone else's work.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have to say, I'm so struck with what at first might seem simply, I'll say, simply as a sound poem, even you simply saying, obviously it's describing a room, which might not be so obvious to all hearing it right away, immediately generates far more meaning from it than one might suspect is there. And it seems, in fact, more portrait-like than
Mhm.
it might at first seem. This is probably a specific room. We have
Yes,
to go
and it's
here.
dedicated to Iris, his
Yeah,
first wife,
yeah.
and they had an apartment in the Bronx, and
Yeah,
uh,
so maybe this is a portrait of the Bronx. So we're going to go to another poem. Craig, I'm going to ask you to. I'm going to hold up because we have so much fun stuff in the archive here. We have John Cage's personal library, which is reconstructed here, and here's you can. I don't know if you can see closely. I'll hold up. This was $2. This very DIY publication, A Dozen Duzin for Eve Rosenthal, and we're going to put these up too. Let's get these up on the screen, and it's a kind of a crown of poems. And Craig, I've asked you to read the first two and then the last two so we get some sense of the rotation. But maybe I'll just ask you to say something about visually what is there clear to anyone if they just look for just a little bit at the capital letters. But maybe talk a bit about what's happening there.
Yeah, I like that I mean, it announces its own formal construction. Um, it does what I was saying before, I find so really important about Jackson's poetry of recognizing that letters um, or phonemes when he's reading are the constituent elements, not the semantic unit of the word, and a kind of work that, no matter how it was composed, and we know that the Jackson sometimes worked with computerized versions of his constraints and things, but regardless of whether machines were involved in the construction, that this evinces a database logic that precedes electronic poetry and computational poetry. As we came to think about it, this is like sending a search query into the database of canonical poetry. I don't happen to know what anthology was used for this, but all of these lines come from now largely forgot. I mean, some of them are very famous and you'll recognize them, but some of them are minor 19th century poems or 17th century popular poems, and bringing back the lines that meet the search query requirements of the letter position of the dedicatee's name.
So would you call these centos?
Yes.
Okay, sure. But and I'll just, for those who may not know, so Cage invented a form called the mesostic, which is like an acrostic where the leftmost letters of a poem spell something secret or not so secret down the left. And he was writing them with the string, let's say the vertical, down the middle. And I believe it was Norman O'Brien who said, "Oh, you should call them mesostics, middle acrostics." And I've never seen this other than in Jackson, where it's a kind of a mesostic, except that the mesostic string is on the diagonal. So it brings another twist to this Cagean form, which is really, really wonderful. And they're great. So maybe we'll hear 1 and 2 and 11 and 12 of this Dozen Duzin for Eve Rosenthal.
Great. Exposed the fool and lashed the knave, everything that man esteems, the grassy harvest of the river fields. Surprised I was with sudden heat, which made my heart to glow, to show all honor to an earthly king. Perhaps in this neglected spot is laid, and after foolish fires do stray, sinks, and the darkening air than all the worthies did. Blind as the 1940 nails, so high that, looking downward, thence, and then, at last, our bliss. 2. Every vestige of the city guessed alone, everything did banish moan. They left their outcast mate behind, tomorrow to fresh woods and pastures new. And done what they would fear to do, the dusty streets did rule, and naked shingles of the world, the moving moon and stars from east to west, and the star that shineth so bright, and through the night warbles luxuriant every bird of song, and still make love anew when the jolly shepherd made so much joy. Skip ahead to the end, 11. Ere my long love be possessed, every blackening church appalls. Break, break, break their donsy tricks, their black mistakes. That on other folks' lives she had no time to look. I'm his by purchase, he's mine by blood. He sipped with his straight mouth of a slender palm, stood but a day. I course the fleet stag, unkennel the fox, shuts up the story of our days. Out then spak an old gray night, unseen, unfelt, unheard by her. And 12. E'en death to die for thee, everything that man esteems. These make the lines of life, and that's her air. As fresh as been the flowers in May, we folk, good folk, since sorrow never comes too late. Leave me, O love, which reachest but to dust, and often am I blamed the finest play under the sun, or those that were used kindly, mater honorata, so easy still it proves in factious times.
Thank you. I have to say, there's just something so wonderful that happens here. Maybe you can just say more about it, where we have this sense of a narrative, but what on earth is it? And then we have so many classic poetry things, rhyme, meter, and yet what exactly really is the effect of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love is how the rhymes come out, but they are unpredict. Jackson couldn't have predicted because they're being sorted by this process. Break and mistake. We heard lots of them. Um, seem to give this intentional structure at the very moment that you know that it's not intentional in that way, which I think is gorgeous. And you get that sense of traditional canonical um, 19th century and earlier sense of poetic intensity, emotional intensity. You're not quite sure where the emotions kind of, there's death, there's death, there's love, there's the only star. Um, but where they're coming, I mean, they're coming from they're coming from capital P poetry itself in some way, rather than from Jackson, though they are coming from Jackson one senses as well, that this is one of these moments in which the most personal, expressive parts of the poetry are derived from the impersonal, unexpressive chants
I
procedures.
think that is really the magic, I'll say, of trusting chance procedures. And Jackson later, I know, mixed some chance and then more intuitive and blend them together. But that one comes up with questions, one accepts the answers, and kind of magic things come out. Jackson would have never written this poem, from scratch, certainly. And yet it's really wonderful. And what I love is that you seem to get all the benefits of old school poetry with none of the none
None
of
of
the
the
things they
guilt.
left behind. Yeah, none of the guilt. Exactly. You've got rhyme and big words, love, and so forth. And it's a way to use all of that in a very, very fresh, still very fresh way. It's really something. Um, and now, Charles, I've asked you to read. We're going to hear the fourth and fifth, I think, of the Märzgedicht in Memoriam Kurt Schwitter. So before we get into them, because I know you'll know, Charles, can you tell our lovely audience who might possibly not know what März is and what
Yeah.
Märzgedicht?
Well, of course. Um, and let me just backtrack a little bit for one thing with chance, which is, of course, a important issue with Cage. Now, I would say about McClo's relation to Cage, but I do think that John Cage said this as well. Um, it, McClo's development of ideas of aleatoric and algorithmic techniques was far beyond Cage as a poet. You really can't compare them. Jackson's work is immense and only partially published, and the number of different ways that he used um, these kinds of structures to create poems was staggering. He also was a composer, but there is that distinction. It isn't that they both did this kind of thing, that McClough really went with it, and it was unique in American poetry. He didn't like the term chance, as he often said to me, and he used the word quasi-chance. So we always would say this now. There are procedures that are aleatoric and procedural, but he is setting up what the parameters are, and even sometimes he alters them, but often he doesn't alter them. But even when he doesn't alter them, he'd still say that it was quasi chance. It isn't what people just imagine as accident. This is really important. Craig mentioned this in our current environment, where you could see McClough as a precursor to large language model poems or other procedural poems that came after. And he did use computers, and he did really generate computer poems. Nick Montfort's recent anthology sort of gives that whole a background. But it's what I would now call, echoing what Craig said, prompt-oriented work. So people don't really recognize in general how AI or LLMs are working with poetry, but the key point would be, and Kyle Booten, I think, is the most interesting in the way he develops this, is the prompt. The prompt doesn't mean, write a poem about love. It means something more like what McClough does, very detailed procedure-oriented things of what you want to do and what you're basing it on. So what's your target text? So McClough is picking many, many different target texts, and he's using what he calls seeds or word strings to determine, like acrostics, what words are going to be. Some of them are names. Many times they're names, but they're not only names. There are other kinds of things. The great work in this respect, and perhaps the fundamental work for for Jackson McClough, is the 1954 stanzas for Iris Lezak, which is very easy to see how the acrostics and the other kinds of patterns work, using those and then reading books through those text selection processes. And that's what he called diastic. The general term he used for that was diastic. So Schwitter's, translated in English by Jerome Rothenberg and Pierre Joris, uh, Mertz's work, one of the really great, first of all, wrote the kind of iconic sound poem, the Sonata. So Jackson's work is be seen as visual poetry, sound poetry, and page poetry as well. He also created this work, Mertz, especially after he left during the Second World War, had to go to England, Hanover. He had to leave Hanover to go to England. He created these works that were total works of art that were collages of many different kinds of things. So in this case, Jackson is creating his own collage work. So collage also involves, um, in painting, taking everyday objects and other things and putting them into your work. And in some ways, this use of found language that pervades Jackson McClough's work is an extension of this idea of collage, although it's systematic and structural in many cases, although sometimes it's free form. So the Meretz are really just tributes to Schwitter's, who also actually wrote, like Jackson writes poems. Schwitter's painted many different kinds of paintings. He painted landscape paintings, he painted abstract paintings, figurative paintings, so a lot of different kinds of things. Meretz being his great work. So you want me to read the fourth first, in memoriam of Schwitter's. I'd also say Jackson's reading, even though he was, so, far out and even seemingly Dadaistic and freeform, his articulation style in his reading was remarkable and stentorian. He articulated every word so that you could hear it, and with beautiful uh, uh, equipoise of his pronunciation of the words. So it was always very distinct to hear him read, not the sort of casual American style that a lot of us adopt. Sees itself reaching the end of all intensifications. Never believed he was making anything but pure abstract forms, as tolerant as possible with respect to its material. Till Augenspiegel. Do not ask for soulful moons. Till Augenspiegel. Do not ask for soulful moons. Increasing formalization. Is that a prompt to go on to the fifth?
Prompting you to do the fifth as well, and then we'll leave you off the hook.
All right. Hanover. Refuse. Tangled. Ogerat. V. Capin. Wordsworth. Order. Frederick McCunis. Spaced. Blumen. Oder Anna Blume. Schwitter's mind and practice roved freely over all the possibilities available to artists. Cage. Schoenberg. Desanctification. Use anything to make art. A marvelous letterant.
Thank you. Um, I think these poems in particular, they really need to be performed. I mean, they're wonderful on the page too. But
Well,
not so much possibility.
he wouldn't have exactly read the first one that way, but why not?
No. Exactly, why not? I should say too that Cage routinely uh, talks about how my clothes are great inspiration to him. throughout his. So
But 10 years difference in age, right? So McClure is
yeah,
10 years younger.
that's right. So McClure, runs with some Cagean procedures and then goes far more afield with them, and in turn, very much influences Cage's later.
And here's something I hate to mention, but I must mention. John Cage is ubiquitously and internationally beloved and famous, and even was on What's My Line in the greatest television appearance on that program, which I
Yeah,
watched.
I've got a
Um,
secret.
well, I've got a secret. I'm sorry, of course, and I apologize, and I should know that, but I did actually watch those shows. I've got a secret, but McClure is actually so averse to poetry culture that he remains not adequately acknowledged, whereas Cage, while controversial, is beloved and acknowledged. So when McClure put this stuff onto poetry, he entered into a field that was deeply antipathetic and still is to the kind of stuff that he's doing. So he remains to me a great model and inspiration, but also a reminder of the difference of reception in the fields.
Yeah, and hopefully McClure's profile will continue to grow. I mean, we're doing this today. I'm sure this will, around the world, launch McClure readings. We prepared, as always, too much for this. We were going to read some of the Stein poems. I hope everyone will just go off and there's Anne, maybe you could hold it up. There's a great collection. You were just holding the cover of the Stein poems, and just you have to say something so the Zoom will zoom to you when you hold it up.
It's a MIT publication, and the Stein poems were all computer, not generated, but computer aided.
Yeah.
Normally, if Jackson writes something by hand, then he types it up, like the earlier works, but the Steins were each directly into the computer, no previous versions.
Right.
But then he had the system and he had a program that I'm sure Charles knows the name of. But
Well, it's Charles Hartman who he relied
yeah,
on. These are very
right,
important,
right.
really original and radical conceptions that they worked on together to create
Yeah,
these kinds of programs. And it's not just one program. There are many different programs creating different things. And in this particular work, he does also change things, and he notes what he changes.
right. And Hartman wrote this program following Michael's ideas. Michael's. Sorry,
Jackson. We could just say Jackson.
Jackson's method. And so anyway, as you say, he has the raw material and then he changes, he edits like anybody would edit their poems. And that's what these are, the Stein poems. And it took him like they're the last big works of his. And
Well, maybe we should read. They're very short, so maybe we'll read. Maybe we'll skip something else, and let's read a little bit of the Stein poems. And I have them handy somewhere. Here we go. So, Charles, I'm going to ask you to read number 11, and Craig number 12, and number 13, and I'm going to read one myself, number 15. But after the title, do mention the dedication. So, Charles,
Well,
start with you, number 11.
of course. So this one, Stein being, of course, an important precursor figure for McClure, although Stein didn't use procedures. But there's another way in which I would say that she did. If you look at her work from this algorithmic, I say algorithmia, this point of view of creating prompts, you could see different of Stein's works are done through some overall structure. It's the sort of thing that we have with us. Really the best reader of these kinds of structures in poetry, which is Craig Dworkin and his work overall. So Stein is a proto-example of somebody whose work is based not on the sonnet or the villanelle, but made up structures. So this is very short, and it's for Anne, this poem, Stein 11, and sing more very loudly. It's taken from Gertrude Stein's A Long Gray Book. And sing more than father, and more food, mutton and always, mentioning more to say more louder, follow necessity, always and long like the eaten, very loudly follow necessity.
And Craig, on to you for number 12, and feel free to say anything if you'd like about it.
Number 12 for Uladaido, use and choose, or use and choose. Use all breadth, enough, days, him and choose. And that's him, Hymn, him and choose.
And Anne, if you would give us Stein 13.
Green completers. So Stein 13 for Gertrude Stein. Green peas, surely that description concludes obliged completers. So it's the asking that begins, giving by beginning more little descriptions. Conclude obliged completers, so. And so the first word of the poem is green, and then the last is so, and that's the title, Green Completers, so. It's derived from Stein's long gray book via diastext. That's the program that Hartman wrote using the name Gertrude Stein as seed. So green for Gertrude and so on. And by minimal subsequent editing, addition of capital letters and periods in the few structure words and suffixes, and thus a few tense changes.
It's wonderful. And I'm going to read number 15, which uses the same program, Diastext 5. And it's the seed is the three lines of, it's a very, very short poem, but it comes from running Gertrude Stein's Picasso, very famous poem Picasso, through this program. So here we go. And one that clear, Stein 15 for Anne Tardos, Ulla, E. Dido, and Gertrude Stein. And one. Going where working that clear. There we go. And I think we're just going to hear one final poem, but I'm going to read a little something because we'll go just a minute or two over because it's so wonderful. And I wanted to show this too. We have just so much fun stuff here. This is the envelope that Charles, the poems you read, came in. Just is sort of fun to see. And actually, Jackson sent Cage a typescript of the whole book. And similarly, there's a letter that I'm going to read just the beginning of. It's a few paragraphs, but I think it's worth reading. And then we're going to hear a poem that was written for Cage's 79th birthday, so from 1991, that Anne's going to take us home with. But let me read a bit of this Dear John letter from Jackson Michael. Dear John, I've been working on a series of poems for your birthday for about a month. The first poem was completed 2 days after your birthday, and I enclosed those completed so far. I also enclosed the poems that are the sources of their vocabulary. The vocabulary of all of them is drawn and arranged by a series of operations involving several computer programs and caesural and other minimal editing from my ongoing series of intuitive poems, 40s. Each of these is a 40-line poem divided into 8 non-metrical strophes of 5 lines, of which the 4th line is longer than the first 3 and the 5th line is shorter. The words and short strings, phrases, etc. in the poems come immediately to me as I write, often while traveling, either from within or from my immediate environment, seen or heard, and are handwritten into Chinese notebooks. Except for the last 2 lines of each strophe, the lines are ended by my handwritings reaching the edge of the page. The 4th line of each strophe continues in a second handwritten line that begins with a small indentation and ends at the right of the paper. Each strophe's 5th line ends around the middle of the handwritten line. In addition to writing the words and grouping them in lines and strophes, I place numbers indicating caesuras as I write. However, these preliminary caesuras may be modified or deleted, and others may be added when I work on the poems as I type them into the computer and afterwards. While typing them, I finalize the caesura. A 3n space equals a breath pause. A 6n space equals 1 beat of silence. And larger multiples of 3 n's of space indicate correspondingly longer pauses. I have also given myself the option of replacing words that duplicate ones appearing earlier in a poem with similar sounding words. I don't change words unless they are repeated, and in the case of multiple word phrases and/or short sentences, that includes articles, prepositions, pronouns, etc. I don't replace those structure words when they appear more than once in a poem. And he just goes on to say that the text he primarily uses is Cage's 36 Misastix Re and not Re Marcel Duchamp, which is just kind of wonderful. So that's the diastic string that's put through the program, and then these caesura and so forth are put in. So we're going to put it up on the screen so you can see the different spaces that equal the pauses. And Anne is going to read us to conclude this wonderful hour. And I should say, we didn't even talk about Jackson and Zen and Buddhism. So you all have to go off and read a lot more about Jackson Maclow and read a lot more Jackson Maclow and watch many, many wonderful videos and hear him read on Pen Sound. So I invite you to do that. And now, Anne, if you would read for us Intention Disappears.
Right. Intention disappears is also, as he explains on the next page, is based on 4016, which I thought would be fun to read, but we don't have time. So Intention Disappears, a poem for John Cage's 79th birthday. Igloo, excuse me. Igloo includes Intoxicate Valerian, Burundi poverty, epidemic situation management deal, vinyl. Absentee regal grasp, agoraphobic village eviscerate. Misericordia, fallacious wretchedness, niche, methadone, tephra. Ursuline escarole wretchedness, Arabella essence, tephra. Sleepy Hollow policy ticket, jeepers occupy street, ichthyological tube luxury, Thanatopsis when quartz planning. Tatumized shagbark avocation, ramshackle, rackety, whir, lexical, harass, valiant radium imbue, annual marker, Kilgore. Excuse me. Pinacoteca, Iridium Palace, Arcadia Combe, Landlord, Parturition Essence, Ticonderoga, Aphoristic Itemized Intoxicate Valerian, Burundi Poverty, Epidemic Situation Management, Iridium Knee Deep, Water, Noteworthy Potential, Melkite, Passerine, Portentous Evocation Decay, Ticonderoga Task, Palavering Creepers, Pitchpipe, Hysteresis, Arabella Laboratory, Factitious Word Pip, Titanic Myth, Ursuline Escarole.
Thank you so much. And with that, let me say that I wish Ursuline Escarole wretchedness on none of you. But and I'll simply say, Anne, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Craig, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And Charles, as always, wonderful to see you, even on Zoom.